June 11, 2025, Tokyo. A tennis star who once reached the US Open final is photographed leaving a model's apartment at night. Within days, 3 years of lies unravel in spectacular fashion. This isn't a story about systems or platforms. It's about the psychology of deception and the devastating human cost of living a double life.
What we're examining with Kei Nishikori is the psychology of compartmentalization taken to an extreme level. For 3 years, he maintained two completely separate emotional worlds, the devoted family man and the secret lover. This level of sustained deception requires extraordinary mental energy and creates profound psychological stress.
Athletes often struggle with the gap between their public image and private reality, but Nishikori's case is particularly striking because of the timing and duration. This wasn't a momentary lapse, it was a calculated, years-long deception that began just days before his own wedding celebration.
Today we're exploring how a moment of carelessness exposed years of compartmentalized deception, the psychology of maintaining parallel lives, and why this scandal reveals the profound human cost when carefully constructed lies finally collapse. To understand this story, we need to understand who Kei Nishikori was before it all fell apart. Born in 1989, he became Japan's tennis icon, the first Asian man to reach a Grand Slam singles final when he made the 2014 US Open final. He reached world number 4, inspired a generation, and carried the hopes of an entire nation.
Nishikori wasn't just successful, he was beloved in Japan. His relationship with Mai Yamaguchi became a fairy tale romance in the media. The tennis champion and the beautiful actress, together for 5 years before marrying in 2020. They represented the perfect couple living the perfect life.
But by 2022, cracks were appearing. Nishikori's career was derailing due to persistent injuries. The former US Open finalist had dropped to world number 373. The man who once inspired millions was struggling to win matches at lower-level tournaments. His identity was crumbling.
Career decline often triggers identity crisis, especially for athletes whose entire sense of self is built around performance and success. When that external validation disappears, some people seek it elsewhere. The affair wasn't just about attraction. It was about reclaiming a sense of desirability and control.
December 2022, Honolulu, Hawaii. Nishikori was there for a tournament, just days before his delayed wedding celebration with Mai. According to Japanese tabloid Shuken Bunshun, this is where he first approached Azuki Agachi, a 32-year-old model. The timing could not have been more psychologically revealing.
Starting an affair days before your wedding celebration is a classic pattern of commitment fear and self-sabotage. On a conscious level, he was preparing to celebrate his marriage. Unconsciously, he may have been creating an escape route from a commitment he wasn't emotionally ready for.
What began as a casual encounter in Hawaii quickly intensified. Agachi was reportedly unaware of Nishikori's marital situation or how close his wedding celebration was. Meanwhile, Nishikori returned to Japan to celebrate his marriage while secretly maintaining contact with someone he'd just met.
This is where the psychology becomes fascinating and disturbing. Nishikori was simultaneously playing the role of devoted husband while nurturing a secret relationship. Mental gymnastics required to maintain both personas without cognitive dissonance is extraordinary.
For a full year, Nishikori successfully maintained this double life. Secret meetings, careful coordination, elaborate cover stories. But the psychological toll of sustained deception is enormous, and the risk of discovery grows with every encounter.
Living a double life requires constant vigilance and emotional compartmentalization. You're essentially maintaining two separate versions of yourself, each with different relationships, commitments, and emotional investments. The stress of keeping these worlds from colliding is exhausting.
2023, the walls began closing in. Agachi's boyfriend discovered evidence of the affair and confronted both parties. Suddenly, this wasn't just about personal relationships. It was about potential public exposure that could destroy Nishikori's career and family.
When third parties discover affairs, the dynamic changes completely. It's no longer about managing two relationships. It's about damage control, legal implications, and protecting reputation. The discovery transformed a private deception into a potential career-ending crisis.
Facing exposure, Nishikori hired a lawyer to mediate and prevent the affair from becoming public. Legal negotiations ensued to resolve the matter quietly. The affair ended, temporarily, and Nishikori thought he had successfully contained the damage. He was wrong.
The legal resolution only addressed the external threat, not the underlying emotional and psychological issues that created the affair in the first place. The marriage problems remained, the identity crisis continued, and now there was additional stress from covering up the deception.
2024, despite the legal resolution and the risk of exposure, Nishikori couldn't stay away. The affair rekindled, more intense and reckless than before. He allegedly told Agachi that he no longer loves his wife but remains married for the sake of their children.
From a performance management perspective, this is fascinating. Nishikori was essentially running three separate campaigns: the devoted husband brand, the reformed cheater narrative, and the honest lover persona. Each required different messaging, different audiences, and constant coordination. It's like managing multiple sponsorship deals that directly conflict with each other.
The cruel irony is that Nishikori's tennis was improving. By late 2024, he reached his first tour-level final in 6 years and climbed back into the top 100. To outsiders, both his career and personal life seemed to be stabilizing. Nothing could have been further from the truth.
Success in one area often creates overconfidence in others. The tennis comeback may have made Nishikori feel invincible, like he could manage all aspects of his complex deception indefinitely. But psychological stress has a way of accumulating until something breaks.
June 11, 2025. After years of careful coordination and secret meetings, Nishikori made a fatal error. He was photographed leaving Azuki Agachi's apartment in Tokyo. The images were captured by Shuken Bunshun, and 3 years of deception were about to be exposed.
This is how elaborate deceptions typically end, not with confession or conscience, but with carelessness. After successfully hiding the relationship for years, overconfidence led to a momentary lapse in judgment. One photographer, one unguarded moment, and everything collapsed.
Photographs were devastating. They showed Nishikori and Agachi together, leaving her apartment building. There was no innocent explanation, no way to spin this. The evidence was undeniable, and Shuken Bunshun was preparing to publish the story.
When photographic evidence exists, denial becomes impossible. The psychological defense mechanisms that enabled years of compartmentalization suddenly become useless. Reality crashes in, and the person must confront the full magnitude of their deception simultaneously.
June 18, 2025. Facing inevitable exposure, Nishikori withdrew from Wimbledon citing injury and issued his public apology. But the statement revealed as much about damage control as genuine remorse. Notice, he apologized to fans and sponsors before mentioning his family.
I deeply apologize for causing discomfort to everyone who supports me, tennis fans, associations, sponsors, and other related parties, and for their concern and inconvenience due to my dishonest behavior. Additionally, I deeply regret making my wife and children feel hurt.
That statement order is telling: professional relationships first, family second. Even in his apology, he was prioritizing damage control over genuine accountability. There's no real insight into how this happened or acknowledgement of the years of calculated deception.
Consequences for Azuki Agachi were swift and devastating. Within hours, she deleted all social media accounts and terminated her modeling agency contract. Unlike Nishikori, who retained his career and earning potential, she lost her livelihood immediately.
This disparity illustrates how affairs often devastate the other woman more than the married partner. Nishikori faces embarrassment but keeps his career. Agachi loses her job and faces social ostracism. The person with the least agency in the situation often pays the highest price.
For Mai Yamaguchi, the betrayal was compounded by its public nature. Not only had her husband been unfaithful for 3 years, but she now had to process that humiliation while millions watched. Mother of 2 young children, saw her private pain become public entertainment.
The family destruction extends far beyond the immediate scandal. Those children will grow up with this story attached to their father's name. Every search will include this betrayal. Professional consequences are temporary. Family consequences can last generations.
What makes this case psychologically fascinating is the sheer duration and complexity of the deception. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a sustained, elaborate construction of parallel lives that required extraordinary mental energy to maintain.
The psychological toll of living multiple identities is enormous. Constant vigilance, emotional compartmentalization, elaborate cover stories, it's psychologically exhausting. Most people can't maintain this level of deception indefinitely without it, affecting their mental health and decision-making.
The affair also reveals how career decline can trigger identity crisis and risky behavior. When Nishikori's tennis success disappeared, he may have sought validation and control through the secret relationship, a dangerous substitute for professional achievement.
Athletes often struggle with identity outside their sport, but most find healthier ways to cope with career decline. Nishikori's choice to seek validation through deception created a psychological house of cards that was always destined to collapse.
At 35, Nishikori now faces the challenge of rebuilding not just his reputation, but his entire sense of self. The tennis comeback that seemed so promising has been overshadowed by questions about his character and capacity for honest relationships.
Recovery from this level of deception requires genuine psychological work, understanding why he needed to maintain parallel lives, addressing the underlying identity issues, and learning to live authentically. The hardest part isn't managing the scandal, it's facing the truth about himself.
Thank you for examining the psychology of sustained deception and its inevitable collapse. This episode was brought to you by Unstructai, where we explore the human cost of living elaborate lies. Nishikori's scandal isn't about systems or platforms. It's about what happens when someone chooses deception over authenticity for so long that they lose track of who they really are. For over 2 years, Kei Nishikori lived as two different people, the devoted family man and the secret lover. The psychological energy required to maintain these separate identities is staggering, and the human cost is devastating. When those carefully constructed walls finally collapsed, they didn't just destroy his reputation, they revealed the profound emptiness of a life built on falsehoods. Sometimes the most destructive force isn't external pressure or impossible expectations. Sometimes it's the choice to compartmentalize your existence until you forget which version of yourself is real.